because I'm a student, right? I've been studying PB off and on for a long time, and others, as you know. Um,
So his influence is a lot on your path, PB.
yes, I feel very connected to
Yeah.
the usefulness of his approach. The
Mm.
I guess that's what I would say.
And
Um,
then you you practice Tibetan Buddhism, and that
I
helped
did.
you,
It
and that
did. It did. But I preferred. I think there's a lot of ritual involved with Tibetan
yeah,
practices.
yeah,
You
visualize,
can do a visualization. It takes an hour to go through,
yeah,
and it's kind of like it's suited for monastic retreatants, which was the case in Tibet. But they never, well, I shouldn't say never. I think Mingyur Dorji, you mentioned him. I think he's a pretty good teacher, and I think he knows how to teach things in a more
in a more
modern way, in a little bit more modern
yeah,
way. The Dalai Lama certainly is one of those people, and he's very interested in the possibilities of science and Buddhism, sharing, and so on. He actively
yeah,
pursues. But what I want to say about PB is that I think he gives you it's like, what do I need to know? And those rituals, they might ingrain certain ways of thinking
mhm.
in us that are useful. But I don't know that it serves the modern lifestyle. And they're done in retreat. That's considered more like where the work happens. Like I have how do people when I was involved with Snowland, people would often come up. They want to ask the teacher, how do I bring the spiritual teachings to my everyday life?
Yes,
Like what kind of question is that? Your everyday life is the way the teachings are, but it's because you have a practice, like, oh, I'm going to visualize this certain
yeah,
deity or something.
external practice,
It's kind of, and it's removed from other things we do.
yeah,
Although they might say, well, no, you practice this thing all the time, whichever
yeah,
deity
or you
practice,
visualize,
you
yeah,
visualize it, whatever. Um, I'm not putting any of those things down, but for me, it seemed laborious. I didn't feel like it was really giving me the guidance that I had a lot of questions about even these practices and about these
mhm.
deities and what they represent, but I never was able to
The
find even
answers,
a book to find the kind of answers
yeah,
that people that are outside that tradition might ask.
yeah,
If you grow up in the tradition, you just don't question it. Even if you're like a Catholic and you go to mass, you may not have a lot of questions about that ritual. But for me, and PB makes the point even in the book, in the back of the book, one of the chapters, that this is a different time, and to think that spirituality doesn't evolve and spiritual practices don't evolve. That's like, we're not trying to recreate what we did 4,000 years ago. He says you already lived that life.
hmm,
You already were around, perhaps, and did those kinds of practices. Now it's here and now in the modern age, and we need something that you know, appeals to us in a different way, is useful to us in a different way, that makes us able to find our way through life, like learning to trust your own intuition. I mean, that's not specifically, as far as I know, it's not specifically taught generally to students of Tibetan Buddhism. They
hmm,
don't give you certain pointers that way, although they're full of lots of pointers about what reality is and so on. But I don't find that they're not self-empowering.
well,
Your show's all about empowerment. They give you empowerments, but it's kind of like you got to do this thing in order
yeah,
to keep the empowerment going. What we're saying here is that no, life empowers us with every lesson that it has to teach, with every
all
new
the
step
lessons,
that you get, with every new intuition that you take and follow some new interest in your life. So it's a little different approach that way. It just always spoke to me. And once I retired from Snow Lion, and I didn't have to be thinking all the time in terms of that culture,
hmm,
it somehow I just magnetically brought me back to
brought
PB,
you
and I've
back
just
to
been
Europe.
Yeah, my
Very nice.
original, like I would say, my root teacher in some way, although PB himself said I don't have disciples. So I can't really, I would say I'm a student of his teachings, and he would like that. He wanted people to study what he had to say, but he didn't want the people to become dependent on him. That's why the last 20 years of his life, he was fairly reclusive.
Wow.
So, I mean, I met him during that time, but you go, you'd spend a day or two or a few days with him, and he would show you certain things, like how to make a salad. But there's something about being with him, the way he did things.
Uh,
You're kind of in the presence of something that is
yeah.
extraordinary.
You watch him and learn from his
Yeah,
actions, really. You
yes,
know.
like
Yeah.
right, something
Yeah.
about life that you can use in your own
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Like you need a feeling model to somehow do anything you're learning. You need to feel Reiki before you could identify it in
Mm-hmm.
yourself and
Exactly.
do
Yeah.
it for others.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like being around these people give you a, an image of the goal. They show you your own, if they're good, they're pointing you right to your own higher self, like you quoted Ramana earlier about the grace of the guru is to show you what you really are.